I spent 40 years working double shifts as an electrician to build a legacy for my daughter, Nicole. But at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, I realized I hadn't been raising a daughter. I'd been hosting a parasite. When I caught her with her hands in my safe, she didn't apologize. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Relax, Gio. It's not like you're my real father anyway. My name is George Malone. Friends call me Gio. I'm 68 years old, retired now, living in the same triple-decker in Dorchester I bought back in 1982. I spent my whole life as an electrician here in Boston. Good work, honest work, the kind where you come home with your hands black and your back screaming, but you sleep knowing you earned every dollar. I raised Nicole alone after her mother, my wife Evelyn, and I had our troubles early on. Well, not alone exactly. Evelyn stayed, but I was the one who worked. I was the one who provided. I believed that's what fathers did. You show up, you sacrifice, you build something for the people you love, and I loved that girl. God, I loved her. Before we go any further, do me a favor. Hit that like button if you've ever worked yourself to the bone for family, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I want to know I'm not the only fool who believed loyalty still meant something. Now, if you're wondering whether Nicole was telling the truth about the paternity thing, hang on, we'll get there. But first, you need to understand who I am, because what happened that night didn't just break my heart. It shattered 40 years of meaning, 40 years of belief that the sacrifices mattered. I'm not a dramatic man, never have been. I don't yell, I don't throw things. When Nicole said those words, I didn't collapse or scream or beg her to take it back. I just stood there in my own hallway, in the house I'd paid for, staring at the daughter I'd raised, and felt something inside me go cold and still. You know that feeling when you realize you've been played? Not suspicion, not doubt, knowing. The kind of clarity that comes when all the little inconsistencies you ignored for years suddenly snap into focus like a circuit diagram. That's what I felt. Nicole wasn't panicking. She wasn't apologizing. She was annoyed. Annoyed that I'd interrupted her. And that phone call she made as she walked out, he knows. That wasn't a confession. That was coordination. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my kitchen with the lights off, drinking cold coffee, trying to figure out when I'd stopped being a father and became just a wallet with a pulse. By sunrise, I knew 3 things for certain. 1, Nicole had been planning this. 2, she wasn't working alone. 3, I was going to find out the truth, all of it. But before I could do that, I had to go back. I had to understand how a man who thought he'd done everything right ended up here, standing in his own home at 2 in the morning, being robbed by the person he'd sacrificed everything for. So let me take you back to the beginning, to the 40 years of crawl spaces and double shifts, to the sacrifices I made, believing they'd mean something. For 40 years, I climbed into crawl spaces most men wouldn't send a dog into. My knees went bad at 50. My hearing's shot from decades of power tools, but I never complained, because every wire I ran, every circuit I fixed, that was for them, both of them. You don't become an electrician because you love tight spaces and electrical burns. You do it because it pays decently and you've got people depending on you. I started in 1978, right out of trade school. Evelyn was pregnant with Nicole. We had nothing, I mean nothing, sleeping on a mattress on the floor, eating beans and rice 4 nights a week. But I worked. God, did I work. I took every overtime shift they offered. I worked weekends, working holidays. There were years I saw more of the inside of commercial buildings than my own living room. New England winters. You ever try running conduit in a building with no heat in January? Your hands go numb, your tools slip, but you keep going because there's a mortgage and a kid who needs winter boots. I missed my own father's funeral to cover Nicole's college tuition. She'd gotten into Boston University. Good school, expensive school. My old man died on a Thursday. Services were Saturday, but I had a commercial job in Worcester that weekend, double-time pay, and Nicole's spring semester bill was due Monday. I made the choice. Dad would have understood. He was a working man too. I drove a 1987 Ford F-150 until 2009, 22 years. Same truck, rusted out fenders, passenger window stuck halfway down, heat that only worked when it felt like it, but it ran, and it saved me $400 a month in truck payments. Meanwhile, Nicole got a brand new Honda Civic for her 21st birthday. Evelyn picked it out. I wrote the check. I ate leftovers. Not because I'm cheap, because Evelyn and Nicole like to go out for dinner. Mother-daughter time, Evelyn called it. Olive Garden, Cheesecake Factory, that Italian place in the North End. I'd come home from a 12-hour shift and find styrofoam containers in the fridge. I'd eat cold chicken parm standing at the counter while they talked upstairs about their day. I told myself, it was fine. They had their bond. I had my work. My hands tell the story of those years. Scars from wire cuts, burn marks from hot connections, calluses so thick I can barely feel texture anymore. I've got tinnitus that sounds like a mosquito that never lands. My right knee clicks when I stand. The left one just hurts. But I believed I was building something. Security, legacy, a foundation so solid that Nicole would never have to struggle the way I did. So she'd grow up knowing her father was a man who kept his promises. I thought sacrifice created gratitude. I thought hard work earned respect. I was wrong, because while I was out there breaking my body to give them comfort, they were building something too, an alliance, a partnership that didn't include me except as a source of funding. I just didn't see it yet. That realization came later, on a Tuesday night, at 2 a.m. I stood in the doorway of my own office, watching a woman I'd raised for 40 years rifle through my life savings like she was sorting recyclables. And when I asked her what the hell she was doing, she didn't even stand up. She just said, "Mom said I could. Let me walk you through that night, every detail, because you need to see exactly what I saw." It was a Tuesday, late April. I'd gone to bed around 10:30 like always. Evelyn was already asleep, or so I thought. The house was quiet. Spring rain tapping the windows. Normal. I woke up a little past 2. Not sure why at first. Then I heard it. Faint sounds from downstairs. Not loud, just movement. The kind of sound that doesn't belong in a quiet house at 2 a.m. I got up, didn't turn on the lights. I walked down the hallway in my socks. My home office is at the end of the first floor, past the kitchen. The door was halfway open. There was a light on inside, not the overhead, just the desk lamp, soft yellow glow spilling into the dark hallway. I pushed the door open. Nicole was crouched on the floor in front of my safe, not the safe, my safe, the one I'd bolted into the floor of the closet 15 years ago, the one only I had the combination to, except it was open. Cash was spread out on the carpet, stacks of 20s and 100s I'd been setting aside for, hell, I don't even know anymore. Emergency fund, rainy day money, bonds too, the paper kind, the ones my father taught me to buy because they're steady and safe, and Nicole had her phone out, taking pictures of documents. She wasn't frantic. She wasn't scared. She was methodical, scanning pages, setting them aside, picking up the next one, like she was doing inventory. Nicole, my voice came out calm, too calm maybe, but I wasn't angry yet. I was confused. This had to be a misunderstanding. She looked up at me. No guilt, no panic, just mild irritation, like I'd interrupted her grocery shopping. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Mom said I could." 4 words. Casual, matter of fact. I felt something shift in my chest. Mom said you could do what? Break into my safe? It's not break if she gave me the combination. That's when I looked around the room more carefully. Evelyn's reading glasses were on my desk. Her coffee mug, still half full, is sitting on the side table. She'd been in here, recently. I glanced toward the window. Our driveway was visible from this angle. Evelyn's car was gone. "Where's your mother?" I asked. "She needed some air. She'll be back." Nicole stood up then, brushing off her knees. She was wearing yoga pants and one of those expensive athletic jackets, hair pulled back, calm as Sunday morning. "Put it back," I said. "Gio, relax." Not Dad, not even George. Gio, like I was her roommate. "Put it back." She sighed, actually sighed, like I was being unreasonable. "We can talk about this in the morning. Mom and I already discussed. I don't give a damn what you and your mother discussed. That's my safe, my money. Put it back, or I'm calling the police. That's when her expression changed. Not to fear, to something colder, sharper. She picked up her phone, started gathering the papers, but slowly, deliberately, like she wanted me to watch. You really want to do this, Gio? She asked. You really want to call the cops on your own daughter? If my own daughter is stealing from me, yes. She stopped. Look at me. And I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger, no shame, contempt. Relax, Gio, she said quietly. It's not like you're my real father anyway. The room went silent. I heard the rain outside, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, my own heartbeat in my ears. What did you just say? She didn't repeat it. I didn't need to. She just stared at me, waiting to see what I'd do. I didn't move, couldn't. My legs felt like rebar. Nicole gathered the rest of the papers, slipped them into a folder and walked past me. She didn't run, didn't rush, just walked out of my office like she'd finished a chore. I heard her footsteps in the hallway. The front door opened, then her voice, quieter now, talking on her phone. He knows. Pause. Yeah, he was awake. I'm leaving now. The door closed. I stood there in my office, staring at the open safe, at the scattered cash on the floor, at Evelyn's reading glasses on my desk, and I understood. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't Nicole acting alone. This was coordinated, planned. Evelyn had given her the combination. Evelyn had left the house so she wouldn't be here when it happened. They'd discussed this, discussed robbing me, and the paternity line. Nicole didn't say that in panic. She said it like she'd been holding on to it, like it was a card she'd been waiting to play. I sat down in my desk chair, didn't turn off the light, didn't close the safe, just sat there as the rain kept falling, and the house stayed empty. By the time the sun came up, I'd made my decision. I was going to find out the truth, not just about the paternity, about everything, about how long they'd been planning this, about what else they'd taken, about who I'd really been living with all these years. But first, I needed proof, and I knew exactly where to start. I thought when I told my wife our daughter robbed us, she'd be as horrified as I was. Instead, Evelyn said, I gave her the combination, Gio. It's her money too. That's when I knew. My wife wasn't Nicole's victim. She was her accomplice. Evelyn came home around 6 that morning. I heard her car pull into the driveway while I was still sitting in my office, staring at the open safe. She walked past the office door without looking in, went straight upstairs. Shower running 10 minutes later. I waited until she came down for coffee. She was dressed for the day. Crisp blouse, slacks, hair done, like it was a normal Wednesday morning. We need to talk, I said. She poured her coffee, added cream, stir it slowly. About what? About Nicole breaking into my safe at 2 a.m. Evelyn took a sip, didn't look at me. She didn't break in, Gio. I gave her the combination. I felt the floor shift under me. You what? I gave her the combination, weeks ago, for emergencies. Emergencies, I repeated. What kind of emergency requires stealing cash and photographing my bonds at 2 a.m? Evelyn finally looked at me. Her eyes were flat, calm. She wasn't stealing. She was checking on things, making sure everything was in order. In order for what? For the family, Gio. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic. I'd caught our daughter with her hands in my life savings and I was being dramatic. She said you gave her permission, I continued. She said you two had discussed this. We did. Without me. Evelyn sighed, set down her coffee. You're getting older, Gio. I needed to make sure someone else knew where things were, in case something happened. I'm 68, not 90, and nothing's wrong with me. You're overreacting. This is exactly what I was worried about. You getting confused, making mountains out of molehills. Confused. She was calling me confused. Nicole said something else, I told her. She said she's not my daughter. She said I'm not her real father. The kitchen went quiet. Evelyn looked at her coffee, picked it up again. We'll discuss this when you're calmer. I'm calm right now. No, Gio, you're not. She walked past me, coffee in hand, heading toward the living room. Evelyn. She stopped in the doorway but didn't turn around. Did you cheat on me? I asked. Is Nicole mine? I'm not having this conversation when you're acting paranoid. Answer the question. She turned then, looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Not anger, not guilt, pity. When you're ready to be rational, she said quietly. We'll talk, but I'm not going to stand here and be accused of things because you woke up on the wrong side of the bed. She left. I heard her footsteps on the stairs. The bedroom door is closing. I stood in my kitchen, the kitchen I'd paid for, in the house I'd worked 40 years to buy, and understood something fundamental had changed. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't Evelyn defending Nicole out of motherly instinct. Evelyn had orchestrated this. She'd given Nicole the combination. She'd left the house so she wouldn't be there when it happened. She'd prepared Nicole for what to say if I confronted her. My wife hadn't been blindsided by our daughter's theft. She'd planned it, and now she was gaslighting me, calling me confused, paranoid, irrational, to avoid accountability. I'd been living with an enemy for 40 years. I just hadn't known about it until now. My wife sat across the breakfast table and told me, with our daughter smiling beside her, that she'd already called the bank to report me as incompetent. She'd been planning to erase me from my own life, and I'd had no idea. 2 days passed. Evelyn stayed in the house but barely spoke to me. Nicole didn't come back. I spent those 2 days trying to figure out my next move. Friday morning, Evelyn called me into the kitchen. Nicole was already there, sitting at the table, 2 coffee mugs in front of them, file folder between them. Sit down, Gio, Evelyn said, not unkindly, like a nurse talking to a patient. I sat. Nicole and I have been talking, Evelyn began, and we're concerned about you. Concerned. That word again. We think you're under a lot of stress, maybe more than you realize. The other night, the way you reacted to Nicole checking the safe, she wasn't checking it. She was robbing it. Evelyn continued, like I hadn't spoken. Made us realize you might need some help, some support, before things get worse. Nicole was nodding, silent, letting her mother do the talking. I've already spoken to our bank, Evelyn said. I filed a report about some concerning behavior, and I've consulted with a family lawyer about options. The air left my lungs. What kind of options? Evelyn slid the folder across the table. I opened it. Guardianship forms, pre-printed. My name is already filled in. This is just a precaution, Evelyn said, to protect you, to make sure that if your judgment starts to slip, someone responsible is managing things. My judgment is fine. Gio, you threatened to call the police on your own daughter because she was stealing from me. See? Evelyn looked at Nicole. This is what I mean. The paranoia, the aggression. I stared at the forms, legal language, declarations of incompetence, lines for signatures. I've been worried for months, Evelyn continued. The forgetfulness, the confusion. You're not the same man you used to be, Gio, and I can't stand by and watch you make decisions that could hurt yourself, or us. Months. She'd been planning this for months. The bank flagged your account, she added, for suspicious activity, large withdrawals, unusual transfers. They're concerned too. I haven't made any unusual transfers. That's not what they said. I looked at Nicole. She was watching me, not hostile, not angry, just waiting. You filed a false report with my bank, I said to Evelyn. I filed a report about legitimate concerns. The bank agrees. They want to add protections to the account, for your own good. She was so calm, so I rehearsed. This wasn't improvisation. This was a script she'd been practicing. I'm not signing anything, I said. Evelyn nodded, like she'd expected this. I understand. This is overwhelming. But Gio, we're doing this with or without your cooperation. The lawyer says we have enough documentation to proceed. I'd prefer to do this amicably. Amicably. She was taking control of my finances, my autonomy, my life, and she wanted to do it amicably. You can't do this, I said. I can. I already am. The question is whether you want to make this ugly or whether you trust that I'm trying to protect you. Nicole finally spoke. We love you, Gio. This is hard for us too. I looked at my daughter, at my wife, both of them sitting across from me, unified, prepared, and I understood. The safe robbery wasn't the crime. It was the trigger, The excuse Evelyn needed to accelerate her timeline. She'd been positioning herself for this for years, and now she was making her move. I stood up, left the forms on the table. I need to think, I said. Evelyn smiled, gentle, patient. Take your time, but Gio, don't take too long. I sat in my truck in the driveway at 3 a.m, staring at my own front door, replaying 40 years of marriage, and I realized my wife hadn't just betrayed me this week. She'd been betraying me since the beginning. I couldn't go inside, couldn't sleep in the same house as them, so I drove to the 24-hour diner on Morrissey Boulevard and ordered coffee. I didn't drink while the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I needed to think, to remember, to figure out when this started. The answer was, always. 15 years ago, Evelyn told me she wanted to help by taking over our finances. I was working 60-hour weeks. She said I was too busy to handle bills, too tired to track expenses. She'd take care of it, make my life easier. I'd been grateful. I handed over the checkbook, the account statements, the bill payments, let her handle it all while I focused on work. And from that moment on, I never saw another bank statement. Whenever I asked about our savings, how much we had, where it was, whether we were on track for retirement, Evelyn got defensive, said I didn't trust her, said I was questioning her ability to manage a household, said if I wanted to take it back, fine, but she'd been doing me a favor all these years, so I stopped asking. I remembered the private conversations. Evelyn and Nicole, heads together at the kitchen table, going silent when I walked in, whispering in Nicole's bedroom with the door closed, shopping trips I wasn't invited to, mother-daughter lunches that became weekly rituals I wasn't part of. I'd thought it was normal, healthy even, a mother and daughter being close, but they weren't just close, they were allied, against me. I remembered when my mother died, heart attack. She was 71. I cried at the funeral. Evelyn didn't, and on the drive home she'd said, well, at least, we'll get the house now, my mother's house, worth maybe $80,000, and that's what Evelyn thought about at the funeral, more inheritance for us. I remembered when my father got sick, lung cancer. He lived 2 hours west in Springfield. I wanted to move closer, help him through treatment. Evelyn refused, said she couldn't leave Boston, couldn't leave her friends, couldn't uproot Nicole. My father died in a nursing home with strangers. I visited most weekends, alone. Evelyn isolated me, kept me away from my family, kept me focused on work, on providing, on being the ATM that funded her and Nicole's life, and I'd let her. I remembered the separate checking account Evelyn opened 10 years ago, for household expenses, she'd said, easier to track. She had her own card, her own statements. I never saw them. How much money had gone through that account? Where had it gone? I didn't know. I'd trusted her, and then I remembered something I'd forgotten, or maybe buried. Back in the 80s, early in our marriage, Evelyn was friends with a woman named Patricia Delano, wife of Marcus Delano. They'd been neighbors for a few years before the Delanos moved to Newton. Evelyn and Patricia used to have coffee every week. I'd forgotten about Patricia, forgotten about Marcus, until Nicole said his name might matter. Has Evelyn known Marcus through Patricia? Had she been close to that family all along? The affair, the pregnancy, the cover-up, had it all been happening right under my nose while I worked double shifts and Evelyn drank coffee with Patricia Delano? I sat in that diner booth and felt 40 years collapse. Every memory took on new weight. Every normal moment revealed itself as manipulation. Evelyn hadn't just betrayed me this week. She'd been positioning herself for decades, taking control of finances, aligning Nicole against me, keeping me isolated from my family, building a life where I was essential as a paycheck but irrelevant as a person. I thought about signing those forms, just surrendering, letting Evelyn have it all. What did it matter anymore? But then I remembered something else. The day I married Evelyn, my father pulled me aside in the church basement. I was 25. He was 52. He looked tired. Son, he'd said quietly, she's got cold eyes. Watch yourself. I'd laughed it off. Told him he was being old-fashioned, paranoid. Evelyn was beautiful. She loved me. We were going to build a life together. My father didn't argue, just squeezed my shoulder and walked away. He died never knowing if I'd heeded his warning, and I hadn't. I'd dismissed him, ignored the one person who saw through Evelyn from the start. But he'd been right. God, he'd been right. Evelyn did have cold eyes. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Sitting in that diner, staring at cold coffee, I made a decision. I wasn't signing those forms. I wasn't surrendering my life. I wasn't letting Evelyn erase me. I was going to fight back, not for me, for my father, to prove he'd raised a son smart enough to recognize the truth, even if it took 40 years. I owed him that, and I was going to find out exactly what Evelyn had been hiding, starting with the paternity question, because if Nicole wasn't mine, I wanted proof, and then I was going to burn their conspiracy to the ground. Thomas looked at me across that diner table and said, "Gio, I've known you since we were 23. If you say something's wrong, something's wrong. But this isn't about your daughter. This is about your wife, and I think she's been robbing you blind for years." I called Thomas from my truck that morning. Didn't even say hello, just, "I need your help." "When and where?" he asked. No questions. That's Thomas. We met at Kelly's Diner on Ave, same place we'd been meeting for coffee since 1980. He was already in our booth when I walked in. Retired now, like me, but Thomas still looked like a cop. Straight back, sharp eyes, that way of watching everyone in the room without seeming to. He'd been Boston PD for 32 years. Robbery, homicide, then financial crimes. He had a reputation for solving cases other detectives gave up on. Cold cases, embezzlement schemes, the kind of crimes that required patience and pattern recognition. I sat down. The waitress brought coffee without asking. "Talk to me," Thomas said. So I did, all of it. The safe at 2 a.m, Nicole's hands on my bonds, her cold eyes when I caught her, the paternity line she threw at me like a knife, Evelyn admitting she gave Nicole the combination, the guardianship forms, the bank complaint, the breakfast table ambush. Thomas didn't interrupt, didn't take notes, just listened with that detective focus I'd seen him use 100 times. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Gio, this isn't about Nicole being a bad daughter. This is about Evelyn running a long-term financial con with your daughter as her accomplice. We need to investigate your wife first." That word, wife, not my daughter. Wife. "You think Evelyn's behind all of it?" I asked. "I think Nicole didn't wake up at 40 years old and decide to rob you out of nowhere. Someone taught her. Someone planned this. And someone's been positioning themselves to take control of your assets for a long time." He pulled out a small notebook. "Here's what we're going to do," he said. "First, forensic accounting. I want to see every account, every transaction, everything Evelyn's touched in the last 20 years. I've got software and contacts who can pull records quietly. Second, DNA test. But we do it right, discreet, defensible in court if it comes to that. Third, surveillance. I want to know who Evelyn talks to, where she goes, what she's planning next." "You really think there's more?" I asked. Thomas looked at me with something like sympathy. "Gio, if Evelyn's been planning this, if she's sophisticated enough to file false complaints with your bank and prepare guardianship paperwork, then yeah, there's more we haven't found yet. This doesn't feel like amateur hour. This feels like someone who's been running a play for years." He reached across the table and gripped my shoulder. "But here's what I know for sure. You're not crazy. You're not paranoid. You're not getting confused in your old age. You caught them red-handed, and now they're trying to gaslight you into questioning your own sanity. That's straight out of the abuser's playbook." For the first time in days, I felt something loosen in my chest. I wasn't alone anymore. "Where do we start?" I asked. Thomas smiled. Not a happy smile, a hunting smile. "We follow the money. It always tells the truth." Thomas slid the bank statements across the table. 20 years of theft, documented in black and white. $250,000. My wife hadn't just betrayed me. She'd robbed me like I was a mark, not her husband. It took Thomas 2 weeks to pull everything together. He had contacts at banks, forensic accounting software from his detective days, and a patience for detail that bordered on obsessiveness. When he called me back to the diner, he had 3 folders. "Sit down," he said. "This is going to hurt." He wasn't wrong. The first folder, bank transfers, monthly payments of $500 to a commissary account at MCI Cedar Junction Prison. The recipient, Marcus Delano, inmate number and all. The transfers started in 2003, 20 years ago. They never stopped. $500 every single month for 20 years. I did the math in my head. Thomas did it for me anyway. $120,000, he said quietly, sent to the biological father of your not daughter while you worked double shifts. The second folder, a savings account I'd never seen before. Citizens Bank, opened in 2008. In Evelyn's name only. Current balance, $47,000. Thomas showed me the transaction history. Deposits matched withdrawals from our joint account. $50 here, $100 there, sometimes $200. Small enough I never noticed. Frequent enough to build serious money. "She's been skimming," Thomas said. "Classic long-term theft. Little amounts. Long timeline." The third folder was credit cards. 3 of them, in Evelyn's name, with statements going to a P.O. box I didn't know we had. Total debt, $30,000. Thomas walked me through the charges. Emergencies. Nicole claimed she needed money for car repairs, medical bills, rent assistance, things I'd already paid for, in cash, directly to Nicole. Evelyn had charged them anyway. Double-dipped. She'd tell Nicole to ask you for money, Thomas explained. You'd give it to her because you're a good father. Then Evelyn would charge the same expense on these cards. Nicole got paid twice. You got robbed twice. I felt sick. Thomas pulled out a calculator and a timeline he'd built. "Conservative estimate," he said. "I'm not counting cash withdrawals I can't track or expenses I can't verify. Just what I can document. $250,000. Stolen or hidden. Over 20 years. He pointed to a specific date on the timeline. August 2009. "Your mother died that month, right?" I nodded. "She left you $75,000. I remember you telling me. Medical bills," I said. "Evelyn said it all went to medical bills from Mom's last year." Thomas shook his head. "It went into that Citizens Bank account, the one in Evelyn's name, your mother's inheritance. Evelyn took it the same month, and you never saw it again, though the account was opened a year earlier." I sat there staring at the numbers, at my wife's name on accounts I'd never authorized, at 20 years of $500 prison deposits. "Gio," Thomas said carefully, "your wife isn't just unfaithful. She's a thief, and she's been using your daughter as a money mule." I looked up at him. "What do I do?" "You don't confront them yet. If you do, she'll hide the rest. She'll move money, destroy evidence, and accelerate the guardianship play." He closed the folders. "First, we protect what's left. Then we prove she knew about paternity from day one. Then we dismantle everything she thinks she has." "How long?" I asked. Thomas looked at me with those cop eyes. "As long as it takes to make sure she loses everything." The DNA test said 0.0% probability, but it was the letter from 1985 that destroyed me. He's stupid enough to believe she's his, and rich enough to take care of us both. My wife had been laughing at me for 40 years. Thomas arranged the DNA test through a private lab, discreet, court defensible. He told me to get something with Nicole's DNA on it, hair, preferably. I went to the house when both women were out, found Nicole's old hairbrush in the bathroom she used when she visited, 3 strands with roots still attached. I felt like a criminal in my own home. 2 weeks later, Thomas called. "It's confirmed," he said. 0.0% probability of paternity. I'd been expecting it. Somehow it still felt like a gut punch. But Thomas wasn't done. "I did some digging on Marcus Delano," he said. "You want the full story? I met him at his house this time. He'd turned his basement into a makeshift investigation room. Whiteboards, printouts, timelines pinned to corkboards. Marcus Delano," Thomas began, pointing to a mugshot from 2002. "Served 12 years at Cedar Junction for embezzlement, released in 2014, but reincarcerated for parole violations. Before that, he was an electrician. Your competitor, actually." I remembered Marcus. We'd bid on the same commercial contracts back in the 80s. He undercut me constantly, spread rumors about my work quality, cost me jobs. You two had history, Thomas continued. But there's more. In 1985, you filed a police report about stolen electrical supplies from one of your job sites. The investigation questioned two people, Marcus Delano and Evelyn Malone. I stared at him. The charges were dropped for lack of evidence, Thomas said. But Gio, they were questioned together. They knew each other. He showed me phone records. Old landline records he'd pulled from archived telecom data through a contact who owed him a favor. 47 calls between Evelyn's number and Marcus's number in 1984, the year Nicole was conceived. Thomas saved the worst for last. He handed me a photocopy of a letter, handwritten. The paper was yellowed, but the words were clear. A friend of mine still works at Citizens Bank, Thomas said quietly. Evelyn has a safety deposit box there, opened in 1986. Let me see what was inside. The letter was dated March 1985. Evelyn's handwriting. Marcus, she's yours, not his, but he'll pay for her. He's stupid enough to believe she's his, and rich enough to take care of us both. Don't contact me until I say it's safe. We'll figure out the rest later. I read it 3 times. Stupid enough, rich enough, take care of us both. Gio, Thomas said. Evelyn knew from day one Nicole wasn't yours. She didn't have an affair that accidentally resulted in a pregnancy. She trapped you, deliberately, because Marcus was unreliable and you were stable. I couldn't speak. And Nicole finding out? Thomas continued. I'd bet money Evelyn told her, probably recently, probably specifically to use it as a weapon when you caught them stealing. I looked at the letter again, at my wife's handwriting, at the contempt dripping from every word. She's been laughing at me, I said quietly. For 40 years. Thomas put his hand on my shoulder. Not anymore, because now we're going to take everything she thought she had and burn it to the ground. I looked at him. Tell me how. Thomas laid out the plan like we were wiring a building. Foundation first, connections second, power on last. Except this time, we were wiring Evelyn's life to self-destruct. We sat in his basement office for 6 hours, coffee going cold, legal pads filling up with notes. I wanted to confront them immediately, walk in, throw the evidence on the table, watch them squirm. Thomas stopped me. Gio, if you confront them now, Evelyn will hide assets, claim you're abusive, and finish the guardianship play. She'll say you're paranoid, violent, unstable. She'll get a restraining order. She'll move money to accounts we can't track. We need to dismantle her power first, then reveal what we know. He drew 3 phases on the whiteboard. Phase 1, misdirection. You play the confused old man Evelyn needs you to be, Thomas said. Shuffle around. Act forgetful. Let her think she's winning. Meanwhile, I'm quietly moving your assets into protected trusts and accounts she can't touch. We consolidate everything into structures that require your explicit consent. No guardianship can override them if they're set up right. Phase 2, documentation. We record everything. Every conversation where they discuss dividing your assets. Every time Evelyn mentions institutionalizing you. Every instance of them treating you like you're incompetent. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. You can legally record conversations you're part of. We build an evidence file that proves financial elder abuse. Phase 3, revelation. Simultaneous strikes. We hit them with eviction notices, disinheritance, and I file a formal criminal referral with the DA's office for Evelyn's embezzlement. Not Nicole. Evelyn. She's the one who's committed felony-level theft. The prison deposits alone are enough to pursue charges. Thomas circled Evelyn's name on the board. We hit Evelyn hardest because she's the mastermind. Nicole gets punished. She loses her inheritance. She loses access to you, but Evelyn gets destroyed. Financially, legally, socially. We make sure everyone knows what she did. Is this too much? I asked. Thomas looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Gio, she stole $250,000. She trapped you into raising another man's child. She's been sending money to that man for 20 years while you worked yourself into disability. She's currently trying to have you declared incompetent so she can steal what's left. This isn't too much. This is justice. He sat down across from me. You're a good man. You've played by the rules your whole life. I worked hard, provided, believed people would honor that. But Evelyn didn't marry you. She marked you, and now she's trying to finish the con. I thought about my father, about his warning on my wedding day. Cold eyes. How long will this take? I asked. 4 weeks, maybe 6. I need time to move assets properly, gather recordings, build the case. Can you hold it together that long? Can you play the role? I thought about 40 years of crawl spaces, of double shifts, of eating cold leftovers while Evelyn and Nicole laughed upstairs. I could do 4 weeks standing on my head. I can do it, I said. Thomas extended his hand. Then let's get to work. We shook on it. His grip was firm, solid. For the first time since that Tuesday at 2 a.m, I felt something other than grief. I felt purpose. Evelyn thought she'd won, though she had me backed into a corner, though the confused old electrician was too broken to fight back. She was about to find out how wrong she was. I let my wife treat me like a senile child. I let her pat my hand and plan my funeral while I was still breathing. And every time Evelyn smiled at me like I was too stupid to understand, I smiled back, knowing exactly what was coming for her. The performance started the next day. I shuffled when I walked, wore my old slippers around the house, asked Evelyn to help me remember where I put my keys, even though they were in my pocket. She ate it up. Within 3 days, Evelyn's whole demeanor changed. The cold defensiveness disappeared. She became affectionate, in a way she hadn't been in years, patting my hand at breakfast, calling me sweetie in this condescending tone she'd never used before, like I was a child who needed patience and gentle guidance. You okay, sweetie? You seem confused. Let me help you with that, sweetie. Don't worry about it, sweetie. I'll take care of everything. Sweetie, over and over, like a knife wrapped in cotton. But the real tell was how open she became about her plans. With Nicole, in front of me. They started having conversations at the kitchen table while I ate soup in the corner, loud enough that I could hear if I was paying attention, quiet enough that they thought I wasn't. We should list it in the spring, Evelyn said one morning, after he goes into the home. Market's better in spring. The life insurance pays out how much? Nicole asked. 200,000. We split it 50-50. And the pension? Stops when he dies. But the house alone should get us 650, maybe 7 if we stage it right. I kept eating my soup, hands steady, face blank. They were planning my estate while I was still breathing. Nicole even brought a real estate agent to just look at the house. A woman in a blazer who walked through my living room, taking notes on her iPad while I sat in my recliner watching Jeopardy. Great bones, the agent said. Needs updating, but the location's prime. You could get top dollar. Evelyn smiled. We're just exploring options. For the future. The agent nodded sympathetically, glanced at me like I was a piece of furniture. Then came the assisted living tour. Evelyn made the appointment herself, told me we were just looking at a nice place where I could get the care I needed. Sunrise Senior Living. Bright lobby, fake plants, activities calendar on the wall. The director showed us around. Private rooms, common dining area, memory care wing. We have excellent support for residents with cognitive decline, she said gently. Evelyn squeezed my hand. Would you like that, Gio? Having people to help you? I nodded, smiled. Sounds nice, I said. That night, she brought me preliminary paperwork. Just in case, she said. So we have everything ready if we need it. I signed it, right there at the kitchen table, except I'd already given the forms to Thomas. He'd made copies, swapped them with dummy documents that had no legal weight. Every signature they thought they were getting was worthless. Meanwhile, Thomas was working, transferring the house, moving money, building the case, and I kept shuffling around in my slippers, smiling, nodding, eating my soup, waiting for the day I'd get to watch Evelyn's world collapse, while Evelyn watched me sign what she thought was her retirement fund. The real will was already locked in a safe deposit box with her name specifically listed under persons receiving nothing. She thought she'd won. She'd already lost everything. Thomas moved fast once we had the plan in place. First, the house. Massachusetts isn't a community property state. The house was in my name only, purchased in 1982 before I married Evelyn. She had no automatic legal claim to it. Thomas set up a private LLC, Honest Work Holdings. Sole beneficiary, me. We sold the house to the LLC for fair market value, $620,000. The sale was legitimate, recorded at the Registry of Deeds, completely legal. Evelyn never thought to check the property records. She assumed she'd get the house through inheritance or guardianship. She assumed wrong. Second, the joint accounts. Joint account holders can legally withdraw all funds without the other's permission. It's not theft. It's how joint accounts work. On a Thursday afternoon, I walked into the bank and transferred every dollar from our joint checking and savings into a new account, in my name only, at a different bank. $73,000. Gone in one transaction. Evelyn discovered it 2 days later when her debit card declined buying groceries at Stop and Shop. She called me from the parking lot, furious. "Gio, what did you do to the accounts?" I put on my confused voice. "The bank said we needed to consolidate, honey. Didn't you get the letter?" "What letter?" "They sent it last week. Said something about fraud protection and new regulations." There was no letter. Or rather, there was. It went to Thomas's office address, not our house. "This is insane," Evelyn shouted. "I can't access anything." "Don't worry, sweetie. I'll add you back once I figure out the new system. The bank said it might take a few weeks. It would take a lot longer than a few weeks." Third, the will. I met with an estate attorney Thomas recommended. We filmed the entire session. 3 witnesses present. Notary public. The works. The new will was explicit. I, George Malone, being of sound mind, do hereby disinherit Evelyn Malone and Nicole Malone for reasons of financial elder abuse, fraud, and betrayal of trust. All assets shall be distributed to the Honest Work Scholarship Fund to provide educational support for children of blue-collar workers. The lawyer asked me on camera, "Mr. Malone, do you understand what you're doing?" "Yes, I'm making sure thieves don't profit from theft." "And you're doing this of your own free will, without coercion?" "Absolutely." We filed it with the court, locked the original in Thomas's safe deposit box. Then I created a fake will, handwritten, supposedly recent, leaving Evelyn the house and Nicole $500,000 in a trust. I showed it to them at the kitchen table, signed it in front of them with a pen Evelyn handed me. Their relief was palpable. Evelyn actually hugged me. "You're doing the right thing, Gio," she said softly, "taking care of your family." I smiled, patted her hand. The real will was already executed. This performance piece was just to keep them calm. Fourth, the nuclear option. Thomas filed a formal complaint with Adult Protective Services, financial exploitation of an elder, backed by bank records, recorded conversations, evidence of the secret accounts. The complaint named Evelyn specifically. She had no idea it was coming, but she would soon. I watched my wife's face crumble as she realized the truth. I wasn't the confused old man she needed me to be. I was the electrician who knew exactly how to cut the power to her entire life. I waited until 3 days before Nicole's birthday. Symbolic, maybe, but also strategic. I asked Evelyn to sit down at the kitchen table, same place she'd presented the guardianship forms, same place I'd signed her fake will. "We need to talk," I said. She smiled, that patient, condescending smile. "Of course, sweetie. What's on your mind?" I slid a folder across the table. She opened it. First page, copies of her secret bank accounts. Citizens Bank, $47,000. Second page, the letter from 1985. He's stupid enough to believe she's his. Third page, transfer records showing $120,000 sent to Marcus Delano's prison account. Fourth page, DNA test results, 0.0% probability of paternity. Fifth page, the Adult Protective Services complaint filed against her. Evelyn's face was drained of color. Actually, it was draining, like someone had pulled a plug. "Evelyn," I said calmly, "I know everything. I know about Marcus. I know Nicole isn't mine. I know you've stolen over $250,000 from me. I know you've been planning to institutionalize me to finish stealing what's left. And now the state knows too." Her mouth opened, closed, It opened again. Then the tears started. Gio, you're misunderstanding. I'm not. I can explain everything. You can't. I did it for us. For our family. I cut her off. You did it for you. You trapped me 40 years ago because Marcus was in trouble and I was stable. You used me like a wallet with legs. You turned our daughter into a thief because that's what you are. A thief. The tears stopped. Her face changed. Now came the anger. You can't prove any of this, she shouted. This is my house too. I'm your wife. Actually, I said quietly, you can't prove you're entitled to anything. I slid another document across the table. The deed transfer. House sold to Honest Work Holdings LLC 3 weeks ago. The house sold, I said. You don't live here anymore. You're a guest, and guests can leave. Evelyn's hands were shaking as she read. The bank accounts? I continued. Empty. Joint account holders can withdraw everything legally. I did. You can't. And the will? I slid the real one across the table. You're not in it. Neither is Nicole. Everything goes to a scholarship fund for kids whose parents actually loved them. Evelyn read it. Her lips moved silently over the words. Persons receiving nothing. Evelyn Malone. Nicole Malone. You can't do this, she whispered. I already did. I stood up. And Evelyn? Marcus got out of prison years ago. You'll have nothing to send him. I hope he still wants you when you're as broke as I'm about to make you. She looked up at me, and for the first time in 40 years, I saw something real in her eyes. Fear. Where am I supposed to go? She asked. I don't know, and I don't care. You have 30 days to figure it out. I walked out of my kitchen, left her sitting there with the evidence of her crime spread across the table. I didn't look back. Nicole opened the envelope expecting money. Instead, she got the truth. She wasn't just a thief. She was her mother's puppet, and I was done being robbed by both of them. 2 days after the Evelyn confrontation, I took Nicole to dinner for her birthday. She'd been calling, confused about why her mother was suddenly staying at Aunt Linda's house. I didn't explain, just said Evelyn wasn't feeling well and suggested we do a small dinner, just the two of us. Nicole agreed, probably thought it was her chance to work on me without Evelyn running interference. We met at a chain restaurant in Quincy. Nothing special. She ordered salmon. I ordered coffee. The conversation was stiff, awkward. She kept checking her phone. After dinner, I handed her an envelope. Happy birthday, I said. She smiled, opened it. Her smile died. Inside, eviction notice for the house, explaining it had been sold and she had 30 days to remove her belongings. Copy of the DNA test, 0% probability of paternity, and the letter, her mother's letter from 1985. I watched her read it, watched her face go pale as she reached the line. He's stupid enough to believe she's his, and rich enough to take care of us both. She planned it, Nicole whispered. From the beginning. She did, I said. Nicole looked up at me, and for just a moment, I saw something like betrayal in her eyes. Not betrayal of me, betrayal by her mother. Did you know? I asked. That I wasn't your biological father? Or did she tell you recently so you'd use it as a weapon? Nicole didn't answer. Either way, I continued quietly, you're 40 years old. You chose to steal from me. You chose cruelty. That's on you, not her. You owe me, she said suddenly. You raised me. I raised someone I thought was my daughter. You're a stranger who happens to have lived in my house for 18 years, and now that stranger needs to find her own place to live. You have 30 days. I stood up, put 2 20s on the table for the bill. Wait, Nicole said. What about the will? What about? You're not in it. Neither is she. It's all going to kids who deserve it. This isn't fair. I looked at her, really looked, and saw a woman I didn't know, had never known. Fair would have been you and your mother treating me like a human being instead of an ATM. Fair would have been honesty. But you made your choices. I walked out, left Nicole sitting alone at that table with the evidence of her mother's 40-year con spread out in front of her. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. I watched from my window as mother and daughter screamed at each other on the lawn, blaming each other for getting caught, not for what they'd done. Even in defeat, they learned nothing, and I felt absolutely nothing. Eviction day came 2 weeks after Nicole's birthday dinner. I'd given them both legal 30-day notice, certified mail, signed receipts, everything by the book. They ignored it. Evelyn because she thought she could still fight it in court. Nicole because she assumed her mother would fix things like always. They were both wrong. The sheriff's deputy arrived at 9 a.m. Professional, polite. He'd done this 100 times before. The locksmith was already there, changing the locks. Technically, the house wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to Honest Work Holdings LLC. But as the sole beneficiary and trustee, I had the right to occupy it and control access. Evelyn and Nicole didn't arrive together. Evelyn came first, pulling up in her sister's Honda. She'd been staying with Linda for 3 weeks now, probably telling her I'd lost my mind. She tried her key. It didn't work. She tried it again. Still nothing. Then she saw the deputy on the porch. "What's going on?" she demanded. "Ma'am, you've been legally evicted from this property. You need to collect your belongings and leave the premises. This is my house." The deputy pulled out the paperwork. Thomas had made sure everything was perfect. According to the Registry of Deeds, this property was sold 4 weeks ago to an LLC. The current owner has requested your removal. You were given proper notice. He can't, this is community property. Massachusetts isn't a community property state, ma'am. The house was in Mr. Malone's name as separate property acquired before marriage. The sale was legal. That's when Nicole's car pulled up. She looked confused. Saw her mother, saw the deputy, saw the locksmith installing new deadbolts. "Mom? What's happening?" Evelyn turned on her. "This is your fault. If you hadn't gotten caught at the safe, if you'd been more careful." Nicole's face went red. "My fault? You're the one who should have told me he knew about Marcus. You said he was too stupid to figure it out. And there it was, right there on the lawn, in front of the neighbors who were gathering on their porches, phones out, watching. The alliance is crumbling." "I did everything you told me to," Nicole shouted. "You said take the money. You said he'd never notice. You said we could get him declared incompetent and everything would be fine." "Lower your voice," Evelyn hissed. But Nicole was done listening. "You ruined my life. You told me he wasn't my real father like it was some kind of weapon I could use. And now I don't have anything." I watched from the living room window. Thomas stood beside me, arms crossed. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "Yeah," I said. "I'm okay." Thomas had arranged boxes of their belongings on the curb. Clothes, photos, personal items. Nothing valuable. I'd sold or donated everything else. Evelyn saw the boxes and tried to approach the house. The deputy stepped in front of her. "Ma'am, you can take your belongings, but you cannot enter the property." She looked up at the window, saw me standing there. "Gio, please, we can talk about this." I closed the curtain. Nicole sat down on the curb and started crying. Real tears this time. Not manipulation, just the reality of consequences catching up. Evelyn pulled out her phone, called someone, probably Linda again. 20 minutes later, a car arrived. Evelyn loaded some boxes into the trunk. Didn't look at Nicole, didn't say goodbye, just left. Nicole sat there another hour before she finally called someone too. A friend, maybe. I didn't know. I didn't care. The deputy waited until both of them were gone before he left. "Do you need anything else, Mr. Malone?" he asked. "No, thank you, officer." He nodded and drove away. Thomas and I stood in my living room, in silence. "They didn't even leave together," I said. "Nope, that's what happens when the only thing holding people together is greed. Take away the money, and there's nothing left." I thought about that. 40 years of marriage, 40 years of fatherhood, and in the end, Evelyn and Nicole couldn't even ride in the same car. Their final punishment wasn't losing me. We were losing each other. A kid I'd never met looked me in the eye and said, "You changed my life, Mr. Malone." My own wife and daughter, after 40 years and $250,000, never once said that. I established the Honest Work Scholarship Fund 6 weeks after the eviction. Thomas helped me set it up through a lawyer who specialized in charitable trusts. The fund would support young people entering the trades: electrical work, plumbing, carpentry, welding, the kind of work that builds things, real things. The money came from what I'd originally intended for Nicole's inheritance. plus proceeds from selling items Evelyn had claimed were hers: jewelry, furniture, art she'd bought with my money and hidden in her sister's basement. I partnered with 3 Boston area trade schools. They'd nominate students who showed promise but lacked resources. I'd review applications personally, meet the kids, decide who got funded. The first recipient was a 19-year-old from Dorchester named Marcus Williams. Yeah, Marcus. Different kid, different family, but that name still hit me like a punch. I almost passed him over. Almost let my bitterness make me punish a kid for his father's sins, or someone else's father's sins. But then I read his essay. He wrote about growing up with a single mother, about wanting to be an electrician because his grandfather had been one, about working 3 part-time jobs to save for tuition, but never getting ahead. He reminded me of myself at that age. So I funded him. Full tuition, tools, books, everything. We met at a Dunkin' Donuts near his school. He showed up 15 minutes early, wearing a button-down shirt that was too big for him. Nervous. I shook his hand. We sat down. "Thank you, sir," he said immediately. "You don't even know me, but you're changing my life. I won't let you down." I sat there, coffee going cold, looking at this kid's earnest face, and I realized something. Nicole never said that. Not once in 40 years. Evelyn never said it either. I'd given them everything: time, money, sacrifice, loyalty, and not once did either of them look me in the eye and say, "Thank you. You changed my life. I won't let you down." But this stranger did. This kid I'd known for 10 minutes valued my generosity more than my own wife and daughter ever had. Over the next few months, I met more recipients. A girl studying to be a plumber, a kid learning welding, a young man going into HVAC. Every single one of them thanked me, meant it, worked hard. Every single one of them proved that generosity given to deserving people actually means something. I'd spent 40 years pouring everything I had into 2 people who saw me as nothing but a resource to exploit. Now I was building futures for people who actually wanted to work, who actually appreciated the chance. This, I decided, was a legacy worth leaving, not a house for thieves, not money for manipulators, but an opportunity for kids who reminded me why I'd chosen honest work in the first place. My name would stand for something real, second chances for people who actually wanted them. Thomas looked at me and said, "You didn't ruin their lives, Gio. You stopped letting them ruin yours. There's a difference, and it matters." That's when I finally understood I'd done the right thing. 6 months after the evictions, Thomas and I sat in our usual booth at Kelly's Diner. Same table, same coffee, but I felt different, lighter. "Are you doing okay?" Thomas asked. "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." "Any regrets?" I thought about it. Honest thoughts. "Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh," I admitted. "Especially with Nicole. Maybe she really was just Evelyn's puppet. Maybe if I'd—" Thomas cut me off. "Stop. Listen to me, Gio. You gave them 40 years of chances to be decent. Evelyn chose greed from day one. Nicole is 40 years old enough to know right from wrong. You didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves. Every step, they chose cruelty over honesty." He leaned forward. "You know what you did? You stopped being their victim. That's not revenge. That's self-respect." I looked down at my coffee. "People keep asking if I miss them," I said quietly. "Do you?" "No, I miss who I thought they were. But those people never existed." Thomas nodded slowly. "Exactly. And here's what those people, the real Evelyn, the real Nicole, had every chance to do differently. Evelyn could have confessed about Marcus decades ago, could have stopped stealing at any point, could have treated you like a human being instead of an ATM. And Nicole," he continued, "could have apologized after you caught her at the safe, could have refused to participate in the guardianship scheme, could have shown basic decency. She had 1,000 chances to do the right thing. They both did," I said. "They both did. And they chose wrong every single time. That's not on you, Gio. That's on them." He sat back. "You don't owe them forgiveness. You don't owe them anything. You gave them everything you had for 40 years, and they spat in your face. What you did, protecting yourself, reclaiming your life, redirecting your legacy to people who deserve it. That's not cruelty. That's justice. I felt something loosen in my chest, something I'd been carrying since that night at 2 a.m. I needed to hear that, I said. I know, because you're a good man, Gio. Good men second-guess themselves. They wonder if they were too harsh. But sometimes being good means being strong. And you were strong. We finished our coffee. We talked about other things. The Red Sox, Thomas's grandkids, normal life. That night, for the first time since I'd caught Nicole at my safe 9 months ago, I slept soundly. No nightmares about Evelyn's cold eyes. No dreams about Nicole's betrayal. Just sleep, deep and dreamless. Because Thomas was right. I hadn't ruined their lives. I'd stopped letting them ruin mine. And that made all the difference. Biology doesn't make you a father. And marriage doesn't make someone loyal. Evelyn and Nicole had 40 years to prove they loved me. Instead, they proved they loved my money more. That's not family. That's robbery. I sit in my workshop now, quieter than it used to be, but finally my own. People still ask if I miss them. I don't. I miss who I thought they were, but those people never existed. My wife was a thief from day one. The letter proved it. She trapped me deliberately, coldly, because Marcus was unreliable and I was stable. My daughter was raised by that thief to be just like her. 40 years of learning that people are resources, not relationships. I learned something too, though. Something I want you to hear if you're watching this and wondering if you're the crazy one for feeling used. Biology doesn't make you a father, and marriage doesn't make someone loyal. Evelyn had 40 years to be a partner. Nicole had 40 years to be a daughter. They chose to be thieves instead. If someone in your life treats you like an ATM, believe them the first time. Don't wait 40 years like I did. And if you're married to someone who'd rather steal from you than love you, you're not married. You're being robbed. Same goes for your kids. If they only call when they need money, if they only show up when there's something to gain, they're not your children. They're strangers you happen to share DNA with. I built my life with my hands and my back. They tried to take it with lies and paperwork, but in the end, the man who knows how to build will always outlast the ones who only know how to take, always. If you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your self-respect, whether it's with your wife, your kids, or both, you understand this story. Let me know where you're watching from. I bet we're not as alone as we think. If you've made it this far, thank you. Seriously, thank you. It means you understood what this story was really about. Not revenge, but dignity, self-respect, the right to stop being used by the people who were supposed to love you most. I'd love to know, have you ever had to walk away from family? Whether it was a wife who betrayed you, a child who only saw you as a wallet, or both working together against you. Have you had to make that choice between staying and losing yourself? Drop your city and state in the comments. I want to know where in this country people still understand that loyalty is earned, not owed. Because I'll tell you what I've learned in the months since I walked away from Evelyn and Nicole. I'm not alone. Neither are you. There are men all over this country. Good men, working men, men who sacrificed everything, who've been treated like ATMs by the people they loved, who've been gaslit into thinking they're the problem, who've been told they're cruel or heartless for finally setting boundaries. You're not cruel. You're not heartless. You're done being robbed. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Not for me, for yourself, because it means you understand that self-respect matters more than keeping peace with people who don't respect you. And subscribe if you want to hear more stories about standing up for yourself, about recognizing when someone's using you, about finding your dignity again after years of being treated like a resource instead of a person. Share this with anyone who needs to hear it. Anyone sitting in their kitchen at 3 a.m, wondering if they're crazy for feeling used. Anyone whose spouse controls the money while claiming it's for the family. Anyone whose adult children only call when they need something. They need to know it's okay to walk away. It's okay to protect what you built. It's okay to give your legacy to people who deserve it instead of people who demand it. Whether it's a spouse who steals, a child who disrespects, or both working together against you, you deserve better. Don't wait 40 years to figure that out like I did. I spent 4 decades believing that sacrifice would earn me love, that hard work would earn me respect, that loyalty was something you gave and eventually got back. I was wrong, but I'm not wrong anymore, and neither are you. So drop that comment. Tell me where you're from. Tell me your story if you want to, because we're building something here. A community of men who understand that family is defined by respect, not biology, by loyalty, not paperwork. And that understanding, that's worth more than anything Evelyn and Nicole ever could have stolen.